afraid that's not going to work.
Welcome back to Recap. Today I will explain an American horror film released this year. Spoilers ahead, watch out. As the movie begins, John Kramer is receiving cancer treatment. His doctor advises him to retire from his job and tells him to attend a support group because he only has about a year to live. John witnesses a custodian going through the belongings of an elderly patient. Then John sees a trap for the custodian with 2 vacuums attached to each of his eyes and a third device on his right hand attached to each of his fingers. The custodian must stop the trap from sucking out his eyes, but every action he takes causes one of his fingers to break off of his hand, making it impossible for him to stop the trap from sucking out his eyes. His eyes are sucked out, and it appears as though he has given up. In reality, the custodian leaves the patient's belongings alone because he realizes John is keeping an eye on him. Later on, John runs into Henry Kessler, a guy who used to be in his support group. Henry had previously claimed to have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, but he claims to have recovered from his illness after undergoing an experimental procedure and showing John his surgical scar. John is informed by Henry about the procedure's initiator, Dr. Finn Peterson. Afterwards, John meets Cecilia, Peterson's daughter, who introduces him to her clinic that is opening in Mexico. While in Mexico, John meets Diego, a taxi driver. John is forced out of the taxi when a van pulls up and 2 armed men get out. They take him to the clinic, which looks to be in a big mansion, after he identifies himself to them. He meets Gabriella, a young woman who says Cecilia's treatment has healed her. The procedure is then explained to John by Cecilia, who he meets in person. She presents John to Mateo and Valentina, her assistants. The night before the procedure, John wakes up in the middle of the night to find Carlos, a young neighbor, attempting to fix his bicycle. John assists the boy and is cordial with him. Later, John has the procedure, and John experiences the slipping in and out of consciousness, which Cecilia predicted would happen. John informs Cecilia that he will give her the remaining payment later because the procedure appears to have been successful. Before leaving, John visits a liquor store to purchase a bottle of tequila for Gabriella as a token of his appreciation. When he goes back, he discovers the clinic closed. When John enters the room where the operation took place, he discovers proof that the group fabricated the procedure, stole his money, and never even performed the surgery. After angrily smashing the bottle, he contacts one of his resources and starts plotting his retaliation. John locates Diego, who was in disguise as the doctor performing the surgery. He sets up a trap for him, forcing him to disarm 2 pipe bombs that are wired into his arms. Diego painfully tears off flesh while cutting into his arms, but he manages to remove the bombs before they explode, saving his life. John congratulates him before compelling Diego to provide the remaining details he requires. Outside of their scam, Valentina has a side business as a prostitute. When she tries to con a man into giving her money, he almost rapes her before Amanda Young, dressed as a pig, arrives to kill the rapist and kidnap Valentina. Then it is revealed that Mateo is Gabriella's drug dealer and that she is an addict. Both of them are taken hostage and knocked out. Finally, Cecilia is in her house and notices a trespasser on the roof through her security cameras. However, despite her attempts to flee, she is also captured. The 4 con artists wake up chained in a room. They are confronted by John and Amanda for their sham operation that has scammed dozens of terminally ill people out of everything they own. He is aware of Cecilia's continued lying, even though she attempts to manipulate the situation by feigning to clarify that John's case was different. Then he starts playing his game. A wire saw is positioned in front of Valentina's neck, trapping her, and a box containing a Geely saw is placed next to her. She is instructed to chop off her right leg and take out enough bone marrow to set herself free. Valentina is given 3 minutes, and in spite of the pain, she starts to cut through her leg and remove her marrow. However, the cup doesn't fill up in time, and she is beheaded. The remaining 3 notice a phone on a cart in the middle of the room. Using her intestines as a rope, Cecilia chops into Valentina's corpse and pulls the cart in their direction. Cecilia tries to call for assistance, but Amanda hits her and grabs the phone. Outside, armed with a gun and demanding that Cecilia return his money, is another patient named Parker Sears, whom John had met earlier following another fictitious operation. She takes his gun after Amanda knocks him out. If Parker follows their rules, John says he can assist him in getting his money back. Amanda feels sorry for Gabriella because she was a recovering drug addict, despite John wanting her to be the next. Finally, Mateo ends up going next. he will be caught in a trap that requires him to remove brain tissue from his head and place it in an enzyme jar. A key will emerge to release him once the situation has been fully resolved. In an effort to endure the pain, Mateo cuts open his head. Unfortunately, he also misses the deadline for his task, and a mask closes around his head, trapping him inside and killing him with fire. And now for Gabriella's trap. Her 2 arms and legs are hanging from the ceiling. She is informed that she will be burned alive by a radiation machine unless she uses a sledgehammer to break her limbs in order to free herself. Reluctantly breaking the bones in her foot and hand, Gabriella frees herself but sustains facial burns. Before moving on to Cecilia, John and Amanda release Parker. However, they learn too late that Parker is working with Cecilia and is her lover. To get him to save her, she gave him a call. John and Amanda are forced to chain themselves up by Parker, who is holding them at gunpoint. Cecilia steps on Gabriella's neck and breaks it when John says that Gabriella needs to be taken to the hospital, claiming that she doesn't want any loose ends. She also informs John that she was aware that he was Jigsaw and finds it funny that she is being targeted by a serial killer. Outside, Carlos is heard kicking a soccer ball. When Cecilia brings him in, she makes the boy chained up on a seesaw trap with John, but John warns him not to pull the lever in Spanish. Cecilia and Parker activate the trap, which waterboards John and Carlos with blood. To ensure that the blood only begins to drown him, John pulls his lever. But Carlos pulls the lever as well and gives John a moment to take a breath. Meanwhile, Cecilia and Parker go back to the office to pick up their money. However, when Cecilia pulls on a bag that appears to contain the money, she sets off a 10-minute timer. As a result, John and Carlos's trap is deactivated, and Hello Zep starts to play. Flashbacks show that John and Amanda were ready for Parker to turn up and carry out his deceit since they knew all along that he was involved in the scam. Just as poison gas begins to fill the room and lock Cecilia and Parker inside, the bag holds documents that show withdrawals from Cecilia's accounts. As the gas burns their skin, they both struggle to get a breath. John and Amanda told Parker that Cecilia would stab him to death in order to save herself. As the countdown is about to run out, Cecilia pokes her head out and manages to survive, but she is trapped in the room and unable to call for assistance, so her only option is to cry out to John in vain. Then, since it is now morning, John and Amanda lead Carlos outside. After that, John hands Carlos every penny retrieved from Cecilia's scam. Midway through the credits, John has located Henry with Mark Hoffman's assistance. Since Henry no longer had his fictitious surgical scar, John surmised that he was involved in the scam. John says to Henry, "I want to play a game," and then sets off a trap that will sever Henry's stomach. All Henry can do is scream in fear. So, that's the end of our movie. If you've come this far, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. See you later.